You know that sinking feeling, right? You're halfway out the door, maybe even down the street, and it hits you, did I lock the door? Well, smart locks promise to make that anxiety a thing of the past with their whole auto lock feature. But how do they actually know when you've left and it's time to lock up? Let's, unlock that mystery.
I mean, it's a feeling we've all had, right? That little jolt of panic when you're halfway to work and you just can't remember. Did I turn the key? It's such a tiny, nagging question, but man, it can totally ruin your morning.
And this is the promise, the big sell of the smart lock. A door that just takes care of itself. It locks automatically, giving you that total peace of mind. Sounds pretty great, doesn't it? But that convenience, it's almost like magic. And it raises a really fascinating question. How does a piece of hardware, a lock on your door, actually know that you've left? And maybe even more importantly, how does it know the door is even in the right position to be locked in the first place? Okay, so let's break this down. For a smart lock's auto lock feature to work reliably, it basically has to solve two major problems. It needs to answer two key questions every single time. So the first question is about proximity. Are you near the door? Is your phone in range? The second one is about position. Is the door actually closed? Because let's be real, locking the deadbolt when the door is wide open doesn't really help anyone, does it? The lock has to be absolutely sure about both of these things. All right, so let's dig into that first challenge, figuring out if you're near the lock. This is where we get into the invisible world of radio waves. We're talking about Bluetooth specifically. Now, the key technology here is something called RSSI, which stands for Received Signal Strength Indicator. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. It's just a measurement of how strong the Bluetooth signal is between your phone and the lock. And the logic, well, it seems pretty straightforward, right? The stronger the signal, the closer you must be. Makes sense. So the system uses these little Bluetooth beacons, and they're constantly sending out these little invisible pings. Your phone is always listening for these pings, and by measuring how strong they are, it tries to guess how far away you are. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. And here is the plot twist. It turns out that simple logic we talked about, it's not so simple. Research shows that Bluetooth signals are, they're incredibly messy. Just look at this. Even when a phone is held perfectly still at the exact same distance, the signal strength that it measures jumps all over the place. All that noise in the signal makes it a pretty terrible tool for measuring distance with any kind of precision. In fact, one study put it really bluntly. They said the raw RSSI data is absolutely weak for figuring out distance indoors. So, okay, if Bluetooth is this unreliable, if it can't really tell if you're 1 foot away or 10 feet away, then how on earth does the lock handle that second critical question? Right. To answer that make-or-break question, is the door actually closed? Smart locks have to ditch the chaotic world of radio waves. They turn to something much, much more reliable. Good old-fashioned magnetism. And the hero of this part of the story is something called a Hall effect sensor. Now, unlike Bluetooth, which is trying to make sense of all those noisy radio waves, a Hall effect sensor detects magnetic fields. And it can use those fields to measure the position, the proximity, and even the angle of an object with just incredible precision. And we're not talking about some big, clunky piece of hardware here. The sensor itself is just this tiny, super sophisticated little chip. It usually gets embedded right into the doorframe. The key thing to remember is that it doesn't guess. It's not estimating. It's measuring a real physical property with amazing accuracy. So here's how it all comes together. And it's a really elegant system, actually. You put a small magnet in the door itself, and then you put the Hall effect sensor in the door frame. As the door swings shut, the sensor is precisely tracking the movement of that magnet. And only when it confirms that the door is perfectly, completely closed, that's when it gives the all clear to the lock's motor. No guesswork, just pure, simple precision. Okay, so we've got the proximity sensing with Bluetooth, however messy it is, and we've got the super precise position sensing with magnets. But you know what? That's really only half the story. A smart lock is a whole system, and now we need to do a little reality check on the actual physical, mechanical parts of it all. Because think about it. You can have the most accurate sensors in the world, but if the actual motor that throws the deadbolt is weak, or if the mechanism jams, well, the whole system fails. The brains of the operation are completely useless without the brawn to back it up. And this is where you start to see some big differences in how smart locks are designed.
You have your fully automatic models that use a motor for literally everything, locking and unlocking. Then you have semi-automatic ones, which might lock on their own, but you still have to turn a knob to unlock. It's really a classic trade-off, right? You're balancing total convenience against things like battery life and, maybe most importantly, having a simple manual backup if the tech decides to have a bad day.
And let's be honest, like any piece of complex tech, this stuff can fail. Sometimes it's the electronics. A sensor goes bad or your phone battery dies, which breaks that geofence connection. A lot of the time, though, it's a simple physical problem, like a warped door or some debris in the frame that stops the deadbolt from lining up. But the number one cause of failure, by far, good old human error during installation.
And getting that installation right is absolutely critical. Get this, one manufacturer actually warns that if you install a single connecting rod backwards, the lock can be opened without any authentication at all. That's not a book. That is a catastrophic security failure, all from one tiny little mistake.
So really, what this all boils down to is a fundamental trade-off. We are swapping the dead simple, foolproof reliability of a piece of metal, a key, for this incredibly complex system of sensors, motors, and software. We get a ton of convenience, for sure, but we also inherit a whole new checklist of things that can potentially go wrong.
And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? As our homes get smarter and smarter, as they fill up with these complex, convenient systems, from our locks to our lights to our thermostats, are we really ready to become our own in-home IT support team? It's definitely something to think about.